Now, let's be honest, it's been a difficult few years for the London real estate market, given Brexit and more recently COVID-19. However, I'm going to give you 10 reasons why I think the London real estate market may still be a good place to put your money. So number one, which is not talked about enough, I think, is the restricted supply of property that you can build in London. And there's two things here. The first thing is that 47% of London is green space, mainly, let's say, parks, gardens, etc. So you'll never be able to build on this land. And number two is what is called the right of light. And this stops new builds overlooking older buildings. So the number of skyscrapers you can build in London in the future will be limited. And with this, in conjunction with so much green space, this is likely to keep prices in London very, very high in the future. Number two, I want to talk about actual prices. So in real terms, over the last few years, prices in London have actually come down. So if we look back to June 2016, the average price of a property in London was £476,000. Now, although in December 2020, it had risen to £496,000, in real terms, this is an actual drop. Even if London real estate market had kept pace with inflation, prices now should actually be above £530,000, yet they're below 500,000. This would indicate that potentially it could be a good time to buy. Number three, also, I want to talk about the weak pound. Now, although the pound has risen a little bit in the last few weeks, historically, it is very, very low. So let's just take it against three currencies. So against the euro, it's around 116 as this video is being made. But in November 2015, it was 140. Against the US dollar, it's currently around 139. But if we look back to 2008, it was actually nearer 2. And against the Japanese yen, it's around 150 at the moment. But looking back around 2007, 2008, it was nearer 250 yen to every pound. So this would indicate as well, it could be a good time to get in particular if you're actually a foreign buyer. Number four, another important ingredient is population growth. Now in 2000, the population of London was 7.2 million. By 2020, this is estimated to have grown to 9.3 million. And more importantly, by 2035, the population of London is expected to grow further to 10.5 million. Number five, tourism. So tourism has gone up. So if you look at the overseas visitors, these were up from 15 million in 2009 to nearly 22 million in 2019. Not bad for a mature destination. Number six, I want to talk about the importance of London. So without London, the UK would be running an annual deficit of 7% to GDP instead of 2%. This is before COVID-19. I'll repeat that, 7% deficit instead of 2%. This shows how important London is. And I also want to say London is still the number one financial centre in Europe and the number one destination for foreign investment, although levels have dropped since 2016. And also 10% of the UK GDP comes from the financial services in London. So this would indicate that London is very, very important to the UK economy. Number seven, foreign buyers. Now, although foreign buyers have dropped recently, there is something very important I think is going to happen. And that is that many people from Hong Kong will be allowed to come here and live in the UK. And in particular, I think they're going to come to London. So the UK government has set up a visa scheme which will allow Hong Kong residents to come to the UK. So after 5 years, they can settle, and 12 months after that, apply for citizenship. Now, Hong Kong buyers are already quite strong in London, so they already own 100,000 properties. So they're used to buying property in London. And if a lot more come to London, this should drive the prices up even further. Number eight, I want to talk about mortgages and government support. So interest rates are very, very low in the UK. And this is likely to continue for the foreseeable future. Plus, there are many, many government support schemes to help people on the housing ladder. And this, I think, in actual fact, will keep prices high. And also, I just want to put in there, property is a very, very important part of a person's life in the UK. It's what I call, it's almost the equivalent of shareholding in the US. There are so many property programs in the UK, and wealth in the UK is really driven by property prices. So it's always going to be in the government's interest to keep property prices moving. Number 9, I want to talk about Crossrail. I know it's been delayed. It's a project that has had a lot of problems, but when it eventually comes, it's going to make London far, far easier to get around. And you're looking at stations that will, very important stations that will connect with each other in a much more fast manner. So we're talking about places like Ealing Broadway, Paddington, Canary Wharf, Tottenham Court Road, and it will go as far as places like Reading outside London. This is going to make London an easier place to get around and very, very important for business as well. And number 10, I just want to talk about other things. Do remember, English is still the #1 language in the world, and people in the UK speak English. So you're still going to get a lot of foreign investment. And most multinationals have their regional headquarters in London as compared to other cities in Europe. And this, I still think, hopefully will stay the case despite Brexit. And also, I just want to talk about other taxation things. So capital gains tax, I know it's not low, but it's not terrible. So on the first 12,300 gain you make on a property sale, you'll pay 0%. On the next 50,000, you'll pay 18% as a foreign buyer. And above that, you'll pay 28%. But don't forget, there are the usual deductions for buy and sell costs and enhancement costs of the property as well. Now, looking at rental income, this is on a sliding scale, and depending on your circumstances, it will vary between 0 and 45%. But there are, I know this sounds high, but very few people will get into the 45% bracket. And there are a lot of generous deductions for rental income tax. So you're looking at repairs, water rates, gas, electricity, service charges, ground rents, letting agent fees, accounting fees as well. So, there are some generous deductions there. And lastly, but also very importantly, I want to talk about the excellent vaccine rollout. And this should help to get London kickstart. It should kickstart London again. However, I want to talk about some major disadvantages as well. So London is obviously still not a cheap place. You're going to have a large outlay of cash to buy a property in London, in particular from abroad. And also, I want to talk about the total government debt to GDP, which has gone above 100%. And this is the first time this has happened since the 1960s. And I must admit, I never thought I would see this in my lifetime. Number 3 as well, I want to talk about the yields in London are not amazing either. So in London, really, you're looking at capital appreciation rather than yields, which on average are only about 3 to 3.5%. Also, I want to talk about, obviously, the teething problems of Brexit. So we've had some quite disturbing figures, trade with the EU in January. I know it's only the first month, but it's down by 40%. Exports are down to the EU by 40%. So this really has to be sorted out as quickly as possible. Also, there is a 2% surcharge for foreign buyers as well coming in soon. So stamp duty was temporarily decreased, and this has been extended to the end of June. But this will go back to normal levels, and as well as a foreign buyer, you're going to pay a 2% surcharge. And also, a lot of people do say, and I've spoken to a lot of people in the UK, that we do have quite an incompetent set of politicians. Unfortunately, I'd agree with that. I would say not only the people in government, but I'd say the opposition as well, have not exactly covered themselves in glory over the last few years. Anyway, what's my conclusion? My conclusion is, if you have a fairly large outlay and you want a place in Europe to put your money where you're going to get some good capital growth in the future, I still think London is a good destination to do that. And where to invest in London, I talked about, I think, anywhere around where Crossrail. So if you look at the new Crossrail coming in, depending obviously on your budget, you could invest around there. Also, Go for places with high population densities. So places like Islington, Camden have very, very high population densities. You'll need a fairly large outlay, but as the populations there are actually growing as well, and it's very densely populated, I think prices are going to remain very high. On a medium budget, perhaps you could go for a place like Wandsworth, because in this borough of London, population density is still relatively high and council taxes are very, very low. So you might want to go there as well. But I could do a whole video on where to buy in London. Anyway, let me know your thoughts. Are you considering investing in London? It'll be great to know. I still think it's a good market. I don't think it's as great as it was a few years ago, but there is still good potential here. Anyway, if you have enjoyed my video, please click the like button. If you like my channel, please subscribe, and I'll see you very soon on the next video. Thank you and bye.